What's up, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. We've got big news on the MLB front. Baseball is back a week from today. Spring training will open for all of the clubs, and we've got some exciting press conferences for you guys. Al Avila just wrapped up his thoughts. We're going to hear from Tigers manager Ron Gardenhire and Matt Boyd coming up just a little bit later. Without further ado, let's bring in Art Regner. Art, you've got to be excited that we've got baseball back. Like I said, in just 1 week, teams will be reporting to spring training round 2.
Yeah, certainly. I definitely am. I mean, Al Avila had a lot to say, obviously, in his press conference. He said, we're ready right now to do this. And, they've been planning on this. And it sounds like the Tigers have been working towards this. I think eventually, I think we knew baseball was going to come back. In what shape or form, we didn't know because of the labor negotiations. But at least it was going to be a 60-game season. I think deep down, that's maybe what they were planning for all along. A couple of other interesting things. Daniel Cabrera was signed. That means the Tigers have 5 of their 6 draft picks signed. Also, Michael Fullmer has been cleared. That's huge news that he can be part of that 60-man roster. A couple of Tiger employees, 1 player and 1 staff member, tested positive for COVID-19. They're going through the process. They haven't recovered. It sounds like the Tigers just found out about it. And if you look at the prospects, even Mize, Manning, and Struble, it doesn't sound in a 60-game schedule that these guys may not be part of the final Tiger roster, but they're just trying to sort that out because nobody knows what the minor leagues are going to do because it's up to the minor leagues whether they're going to start or not. So he said a lot of really good and interesting things. They're going to have a 60-man roster. They're going to be at Comerica Park. All 60 of the fellas aren't going to be together. They're going to use the Tiger Clubhouse, the visiting clubhouse, and the auxiliary clubhouse. So they have plenty of room to house these players. But throughout the day, I don't know when it'll start. I'm making this up. From 8 a.m. to 5, about every 2 hours, you're going to see a new group, leave the ballpark and then go into the ballpark. So I thought, they thought about Lakeland, but with what's going on in Florida right now, they figured, safety first. So they're not going to go to Lakeland either. So, I mean, I thought it was a captivating press conference by Al. He said a lot of things, and he looked relieved. I mean, who isn't? Finally, we're going to have actual games to talk about, Daniela, and previewing games and all that. And the 60-game schedule, anything can happen, and it's true. The Tigers have just as good a chance as anybody because it's wide open. We've never been down this road before. I know baseball at one time didn't play 182 game schedule, but they certainly played more than 60 for a season. And another thing that I like is the extra innings. Is every game in extra innings is going to start with a guy on second. That's going to be like 3-on-3 overtime in the NHL. Those games are going to end quickly. I mean, you're going to see some runs scored in those things with a guy on second, I'm pretty sure. And then obviously another thing he said, protecting our pitching. So it'll be interesting to see what Ron Gardenhire says, and then obviously what Matt Boyd says, they'll piggyback on what Al Avila said.
Exactly, Art. And Ron Gardenhire will be joining us momentarily. He is set to join us at noon. So like I said, any minute now, we'll be going live to Ron Gardenhire's press conference. And at 12:30-ish, we will be hearing from Matt Boyd. Another thing I wanted to touch on, Art, that Al Avila said, is that no players, to his knowledge, have opted out, which is something that was concerning to a few people. You've kind of heard, are the players going to be ready to play? Are they going to want to play due to safety reasons or whatever that reason may be? But no one has opted out. And he did talk about, too, how when the Tigers get into that clubhouse, they're all about Tigers baseball. They're representing the organization. They're representing the fans in the city of Detroit. And I thought that was really great to hear.
Well, that's a competitive nature. They're competitive. Once they put the uniform on and they go out between the lines, they're out there to win. That's never going to change. That's why they, that's why you play the game, right? You play to win. The one interesting thing, though, that Al Avila did say, there's over 200 players that are in the Dominican Republic, and then guys spread out, mostly South American countries, where they're trying to figure out a way to get them all back. I guess they're all going to go to Miami first and then try to divide them. So if there's some Latin American players that the Tigers have, and there are many of them, and most of them, very very high prospects in this organization or already on the roster, they may not be there next week because they're trying to get back into the country, and again, not to put not to sound like Art Downer here, but remember, COVID-19 is really going to dictate what's going to happen here, and nobody knows. Every day, cases are going up. There's spikes all over, 20 some odd states. What happens, and what happens if Texas decides that you got to stay at home, or Florida decides you have to stay at home. Those teams, are they going to play? You can't travel into those states. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that could still impact this, COVID-19 being the one, but they have a plan in place. It's going to be business as usual, as much as it can be business as usual. I compliment the Tigers, especially. Al Avila was together today. I mean, he knows what they're doing. He's got that plan. The Tigers are going to be ready. I just hope that COVID-19 doesn't decide that, yeah, you may be ready, but I'm not going away anytime soon. That's my biggest fear. I think it's everybody's biggest fear, but it sounds like, the health protocols are in place. They know what they're going to do with their roster. They have sort of an idea what they're going to do with their prospects. Let's start playing baseball and take it away.
One of those health protocols, Art, is that the team, when spring training does resume next week, when scrimmages start, they will only be able to scrimmage within their team. There will not be other teams coming in or, just some games before they get to the regular season here. But how will that affect the play, do you think? How will that affect the development? Will that slow the guys down a little bit? I mean, it really is just 3 weeks that they have for spring training here, and there are no mixing of the teams, so they'll just have to scrimmage each other. Do you think this will have any negative effect on how their readiness is for the season?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they're inter-squad games. The Tigers are going to be playing against themselves. Right. Even though you might have something to prove, or you're thinking, God, I'm on the cusp of making this roster here, but baseball's a little bit different, and so I just think that they need to really play against other teams and get that to go, and to get those fire burning. It's one thing, you're playing against a guy that you just had a Little Caesar's pizza with or something, you know what I mean? And then the next thing you're out there trying to strike them out. I don't know what that dynamic is. I mean, I know they're professional athletes. I know that they're geared to win. I know that they're extremely competitive. But at the end of the day, playing against your teammates, guys that
Art,
your brothers, different.
Gardy is now joining us. Sorry, Art. We'll get back to this, you guys. We're going to throw it to Ron Gardenhire right now.
So we'll give it a couple minutes just to make sure everybody has a chance to record that needs to. Same process as before with Al. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. We will get to you as we receive them. You could just limit it to one question and one follow-up. And also, please have your microphone on mute unless you were asking a question to avoid any background noise. Following Gardy, we will have Matthew Boyd available around 12:30. So with that, we will open it up for questions. And it looks like we will start with Anthony Fennick from the Detroit Free Press.
Hello, Ron. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. I have a big question for you. Who's going to start on opening day for the Tigers?
Yes, somebody will start on opening day.
There we go. Hey, how are you feeling with, some time off? I know that, these last few seasons, the losing does get difficult, especially for the coaching staff. But how do you feel personally in terms of could this have been a little bit of a refresher for you and the coaching staff being away from the game for 6-7 months with the family?
I've enjoyed the time. My wife and I have had a ball. We've traveled a little bit, saw our grandbabies. So things like that, normally once you start spring training, you don't really get a chance to that opportunity. So we've taken advantage of it a little, but with the COVID, it's been hard. You just want to plant yourself in your house and try to stay healthy and help everybody else stay healthy. And that's kind of what we've done. As far as I've been anxious to figure this baseball thing out like everybody else. We've watched it go, the needle falling up and down all over the place, and no one really knew what was going to happen. So I guess the best thing is that now we're talking about we're going to go out and try to play, and hopefully that works out.
And last one for me, look, obviously you guys are used to playing 162 games, but 60 games makes it a little bit more wide open, makes every game mean a little bit more, and you have some top prospects there. How exciting are you to go out and really take a run at it this year?
Well, I mean, that's what we've talked about, with the way this thing is kind of laying itself out there. I think everybody has a little bit of shot. You get off to a good start, you never know which way we're going to go. I was enjoying this team in spring training with the new guys, the way we were driving the baseball, and some of the kids, obviously are more confident in what they can do. Our pitching staff looked like it was lining up pretty good. We were working on the bullpen, so I was excited about it, and then we got shut down. So hopefully, and as I've told Al when we're talking about this spring training, we're going to try to set up here and do that we make sure the 30 guys that we take with us are ready to play because you can't afford to fall back. And if you get off to a good start, nobody knows what can happen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Got it.
Thanks, Anthony. Next, we'll go to Chris Mycoskie from the Detroit News.
Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Good, Chris.
This is, we've talked a little bit about having this at Comerica. It was 60 guys there and having waves of players come throughout the day, extending that day. How are you going to divvy that up? Are you going to use the Toledo coaching staff? I mean, it's a lot of players and a lot of time. Can you just take us through how that's going to work?
Yeah, it's going to be definitely in waves, and you're going to have basically your morning group and then an afternoon group, and we'll divvy that up between a couple of different staffs and mix the staffs up, and we'll obviously the first 3 days is just pitchers and catchers. That'll probably go pretty easy, and then the days are going to get longer once all the players get there. Ultimately, before we start the season, we'll probably have inter-squad games. We have enough people to be able to do that, but we're going to use Comerica, and if we see fit, sometime it looks like we need to send some guys to Toledo to make it a little easier doing the workouts and the batting practice, live batting practice, then we'll do that. But we've got a good program. Josh has done a real nice job. We've talked about this over and over again, trying to make sure we get it all right and also keep people healthy. That's the most important thing here. We have to stay healthy.
Right. And talk about, I don't know how much you've been able to think about this, but the fact that Al told us that Michael Fullmer's been cleared, he's been throwing at least through up to 3 innings already. He's full go. How does that kind of fit into the play? Because you kind of had the 5 established, the rotation.
Yeah, we just have to, once we get there and we see him and he starts working out, and we'll just have to figure out what we can do, how we can do it. He's been out a long time, and throwing live BPs and all those things, it's not the same as getting in a game, covering first base, all that stuff. So, he's going to have to, show us that he can do all those things also. I mean, there's, what if he gets into a rundown or has to go field a bunt? I know he's been working on some of those things, but game situation is so much different than practice. So, there's a lot of things that he's going to have to show us that he can do. But he looks great. I've been over to Lakeland a few times. He looks great. He's in the best shape I've ever seen him. He says his knee feels great. His elbow feels great. So, you know what? Put him out there and let's see what happens. But there's an understanding he's going to have to go through the PFP and live situations and all that as best we can set up for him. And then at the end of the day, as Al says in his best way, we'll figure it out when we break with our best 30 guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Next, we'll go to Noah Trister from the Associated Press.
Hey, Ron. I'm curious that there's some new rules sort of put in this year, the guy on second to start extra innings and so forth. Is there anything that you've seen that sort of stands out that might change strategy a decent amount from a manager standpoint?
Well, I think that will probably – I've seen it through the minor league systems. I've watched it and on TV and seen videos of it. And, it's an interesting thing. I think that's probably the biggest change. But I think probably the thing that we're all going to have to really, really get used to is, in the dugouts, whether I don't know if I can even walk out to the mound to take a picture out of it. And supposedly if a guy gets hurt, the trainer's supposed to be these are all things that have been talked about and they're not written in stone. but some of the things I've heard, it's going to be different. And we know it's going to be different because there's not going to be fans in the stands, at least right away. And that's going to make baseball different. So there's a lot to this. I mean, I think we all know that. You'd be silly and naive if you didn't think that this was going to be a perfect situation. But we want to play baseball. The guys want to play baseball. And I think our fans would love to be able to see baseball on TV and watch the Tigers play. And so we're going to do that. But, I think there's so much involved, but staying healthy here and making sure all the players and coaches and the umpires are okay that we're doing this. And I think everybody agrees that that's first and foremost. And then we just play baseball as best we can.
Does a 60-game schedule change anything as far as, how you use the pitchers? Do you anticipate using a normal 5-man rotation, or might we see openers more often in this format or anything like that?
I think, we'll try to have a 5-man rotation, but we're open to anything. We did it last year with Norris, and it really worked out really good for him in that opener situation. But we'll get to spring training and see how everybody does and how everybody's throwing, and try to put, the guys out there. First, we got to get through spring healthy because this is unique. We've already had a little bit of a spring training, and now we're going back and doing it again. So as long as somebody doesn't get too goosey and hurt themselves, we'll have some good decisions to make, and that's always fun when you have good decisions.
Thanks.
Thanks, Noah. Next, we'll go to Trevor Thompson from Fox Sports Detroit.
Hey, Al, good to see you. Gardy, good to see you. Hope your family is healthy, but my concern is what your thoughts are on, you mentioned the virus, how it's affected your family, the world, and how you're taking things in. What is your personal concern when you see numbers raising across the country and this thing not being really dealt with yet for the health of your players and the game itself? Where's your personal level of concern?
Well, I mean, I have concern. I've had cancer and I've been a diabetic, and those aren't always good things. And I look for people to make sure and take care of us that have the knowledge, the doctors and our trainers and everybody. They're letting us know all the information we need and what we should and shouldn't do, and we'll go by that. To say I'm uneasy, yeah, I am. I don't want to get sick. I don't want my wife to get sick. I don't want my family. I don't want anybody to get sick. Don't want to see the players. So is it a risk? Absolutely. There's risk involved in this. We all know it, and we're willing to go try to do this thing. I would never want to jump ship with my team, but we're going to, hopefully do everything right as far as protocol goes, and take care of each other and keep everybody healthy as best we possibly can. But yeah, I'm definitely a little uneasy about it, just because we got 60 guys going to be coming through a clubhouse and a whole bunch of coaches too. And we know how this thing happens, and we've seen it happen, and hopefully we'll be able to do everything right and keep it away from our ball club and every other ball club.
Thanks, Gardy.
You got it.
Thanks, Trevor. Next, we'll go to Justin Rose from Channel 7.
Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Just wondering if this is a season. I know you've been through lockouts and different things like that before, but are you more excited for this season just based upon, I feel like society wants sports to come back so badly in baseball. Now it has an opportunity to kind of get back to where it is. Where's your excitement level just for this particular season?
Well, it is. I've learned Zoom. I can tell you that. I've been on more Zoom calls, and it'd be nice to actually stand and face to face and talk with a few guys, coaches and everything. But yeah, we're excited. We've been in baseball. 40 years I've been in baseball, and once it gets taken away from you by this COVID, and we had to stop spring training, it was like everybody just we were gone. And there's a fellowship that's in baseball that is second to none, because we play so many games and we're around each other. So you miss those things. And like I said, the biggest thing is health. We want to stay healthy. We know we've got a pretty good baseball team. We think we can play with anybody, and this shortened season ought to make it really interesting if you get out to a good start. But health wise, that's where everybody's thoughts are, and mine too. And then do some baseball. It ought to be fun. We're looking forward to getting around the guys and seeing them and start whacking the ball around and see what happens. And hopefully we'll put out a good effort if we get through this thing.
Quick follow-up. Did you have any extra meetings with players? Did you try to get anybody together for a just a get together Zoom, or was it mostly just business Zooms as you guys kind of tried
Business.
to stay in touch?
Coaching staff with Al and his staff, just staying in touch and talking. And then, my coaches all reached out. Andy was reaching out to the pitchers, and I would have dialogue with Andy. And then Lloyd was talking to players, and my other coaches have been talking to players and stuff. I reached out and sent them text messages a couple of times. I only got like 2 answers back. So I just figured they didn't want to talk to me anyway. So I let my coaches do it. I talked to them, and that's how we kind of stayed in touch.
Give Carol a computer back. Thanks. See you soon.
Yeah, everything's in Carol's name. She buys everything.
Thanks, Justin. Next, we'll go to Daniela Bruce. Danielle, are you
One
there?
of these days, I'm going to remember to unmute myself before I start talking. So I'm still learning the Zoom too, Gardy. Good to see you. Question for you is obviously a lot of time away, and then you're given this 3-week spring training limited to inter-squad games. You mentioned health and injury concerns. Is there any concern that the players won't be as game ready as they normally are? And how do you approach making sure they're as ready as they can be by July 24th?
Well, and to my knowledge, and like I said, my coaches have been in contact with them and find out how they're doing. And most of them had good places to work out. And the pitchers, I know the pitchers are chomping at the bit because Andy's told me they're all ready to go 3 and 4 innings right now. They've been throwing up and down bullpens, and kind of game situation stuff. So, but once you get out on the field and, everybody's around and you're facing, hitters out there on the field, it's going to be a little bit of a shockwave going through them to get back out there, but they'll be excited, and hopefully we can, keep them composed and not overdo it and try to rush. So I think everybody's going to be ready. I think everybody's been waiting for this day and working their tail off, trying to stay in shape as best they could and stay healthy. So we'll get there. And then I think, like everybody, we're going to see what we have when we get there, see who's really going good right now and feels good. And you might see some guys with some aches and pains. So that's just the way it always is when you get to spring. And there's going to be some soreness the first few days, no matter how hard you've been working. And we just move forward, and hopefully we'll be ready by the time we start playing games.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Daniela. Next, we'll go to Jeff Seidel from the Free Press.
Hey, thanks for doing this.
Okay.
Al mentioned that right when the season starts, in some ways it might be like a spring training game with the use of pitchers. In your mind right now, how do you think that's going to go? I mean, nobody's going 9 innings or whatever, but how are you approaching it right now to get to that point?
Well, I'm just thankful that, they're going to give us extra players to start off with, 30-man roster. And then I think after a week or so, they'll drop a couple, and then another week they'll drop a couple. But starting off with more bodies is going to help as far as the pitching goes, because as you said, no one's ready to go 8 or 9 innings. Maybe Matt Boyd. You can talk to him after you talk to me. He probably is, just knowing Matty. But most pitchers, it's going to be start off with 3 innings, and we'll just slowly work them up to get probably 5 or 6 innings before they leave spring, if we're lucky and we can all stay healthy. And then, we'll ad lib. We'll have a bullpen, some extra arms to get through the first part of it. And, ultimately your goal is to just be normal. But normal's a big word in baseball right now. When there's no people in the stands and all that stuff, I don't know how you can call it normal, but we're going to do the best we can.
And if I could have just one follow-up on the virus. I haven't read all the different health stuff that was agreed to yesterday. If a guy, it seems likely that somebody at some point is going to test positive. Is it just that guy is yanked out, or it's not like you do contact tracing or that kind of, I mean, like the guy next to him in the locker wouldn't be yanked out too, or is it just?
Well, I mean, those are all the questions that, we've kind of been going over. We just, I've talked with Doug Teeter. He's talked to the coaching staff, and it is a serious thing. And if one guy, in your clubhouse, it could be multiple people that end up being quarantined and checked, and they're going to be testing us. They're doing everything they possibly can to make sure that we can get through this thing, and testing on a daily basis. Check your temperature when you walk in and do a test. And that's what's being set up right now. So they're going to do everything they possibly can to keep us safe. I mean, I don't think any of us know, what's going to happen here as we go along, because this is new territory for everybody involved. We do know that this is a very dangerous situation, could be in our country. It has been. We've seen, what has happened to this thing, and everybody's very aware of it. and we're going to try to go forward as best we possibly can with safety being number one.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Jeff. Next, we'll go to Anthony Fennick from the Free Press with a follow-up.
Ron, just a follow-up. I mean, baseball's been pretty much your entire life. You played this game before the business really boomed, and you saw kind of how the business side is. You're on the inside, and I know that there's a whole pandemic we're dealing with here. But how frustrating was this process and seeing it play out between the owners and the players and the haggling of the money? From your perspective and knowing what this game means to you and, you know, the country, the world, how frustrating was it from your perspective?
Well, I mean, you understand when you get in this situation and all of a sudden we're sitting here at home watching same thing everybody else is watching. And, you know, I'm just like with any other fan. I love baseball. And when they're going back and forth and, you know, I sit there and say, why can't they just get this done? Just concede, get it done, and let's move forward in this thing if we're going to do it. And I was upset with the whole thing too, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think I'm emotional when it comes to baseball, and I'm like all the other fans. I want to see baseball. I know our fans want to see it, and they don't want to read about, you know, a million here, a million there. All we want to do is play baseball, and that's what you know. So I was frustrated with it, just like everybody else, and I'm really glad that we've gotten through that part. Now they're going to put us on the field, and hopefully everything will work out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Anybody else have a question or a follow-up, please put something in the chat. Got time for a few more if there are any more questions. We'll go to Bob Wojnowski from the Detroit News.
Gardy, how are you?
Good, Bob. How are you?
Good, thanks. You've already mentioned how abnormal this season is going to be with the rules and everything else. Are you nervous about it? Do you have trepidation? Do you want, like, with no fans in the stands and everything else, are you as nervous about how it will be received beyond the safety issues, just the game itself, how people will embrace it or not embrace it? Does that concern you at all?
Sure. I think people love baseball and just getting back on the field and seeing these things, but it's going to be an eye opener. There's no doubt when you're playing, you know, with no fans, at least starting off with no fans. And we haven't gotten all the rules. I mean, I don't know protocol for a manager. Can I go out and take a pitcher out? I think they want me to just point and rather than go to the mound. So they're going to do everything to try to keep us as safe as possible, but it's going to be different. And I'm kind of, I can't wait to really get out there and feel what it's like in the dugout and see how it goes, because, you know, we haven't really done that since we played in the minor leagues where sometimes there weren't a lot of fans. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. And we just have to grab a hold of it and try to make it the best we possibly can. That's what I'm going to do. And hopefully my players will do the same thing.
Just a quick follow-up, minor thing, or maybe not a minor thing. Will you be wearing a mask in the dugout, do you think?
I have to see the protocol. I mean, you know, we've talked about it. Our trainer said that's a possibility. They haven't, you know, given us the finals. When we get there and finally start, you know, having our clubhouse stuff, you know, we're going to have conversations from the doctors and the trainers on what we have to do. And if I have to wear a mask in the dugout, that's definitely going to be really different. But that's what it takes to keep myself healthy and everybody else healthy. That's what we'll do. But I don't think they've actually, you know, come out and said that yet. And we'll just wait. Maybe I'll get a free Tiger mask. I think that'd be great.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wojo. Next, we'll go back to Jeff Seidel, the Free Press.
Just a small question. On a personal level, I wondered if you're going to be doing anything different, like your wife not coming, your family not visiting during this time.
And that's I'm glad you asked that, because it is tough, because, you know, my wife's talked about that. She loves coming to baseball games. She's been doing it, you know, for a long, long time, 40 years with me for sure. And she loved baseball before that. So yeah, it's going to be different. And she thinks about it all the time. Is she going to be able to come to the games and, or just watch them on TV? Because she loves going to the game. That's where all the wives get together and, you know, have their conversations and they have fun. They get to know each other and have a good time. And, you know, they get to meet people. We meet people all the time because we're in the dugout and everything. But, you know, wives love going and getting to know other people. And my wife's no different. Carol loves baseball. She's been in it and she loves to go to the game. So that's something that we still don't know what's going to happen, and we'll figure that out as we go along.
But is she going to stay in your hometown, or is she coming to Detroit?
No, she's going to come to Detroit. That's a lock. I told her, I'm going, you're going, honey. So she's going to come up there, and I'm going up, early. I mean, this weekend, and we have to do a test, I think, before we can go in the clubhouse and all those things, and then let it see if you're okay. And then she's going to eventually come up, and we plan on renting a place, and like a normal season, we'll be out there and in our place that we rent every year, and hopefully we'll go from there. But she'll try to come to the games if she possibly can. She'll sneak in. She's pretty good at that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Next, we'll go to Jason Beck from MLB.com.
Hey, Gardy.
Hi.
I was wondering, you talked a lot in spring training about how whenever Skubal or Mize or the prospects would pitch, Al would be wagging your fingers saying you can't take them. How has this concept with the expanded roster and taxi squad changed any of those conversations? And how does it change in spring training 2.0, getting them ready for the possibility that if they're on the taxi squad, I would assume you have to get them ready for the possibility of maybe being needed to come up and pitch in games?
Absolutely. That's, these guys, you can't just all of a sudden, and that's with all of our minor league players. It's tough just to say we got nothing for you. And you know what, with the Skubals and those guys who, the talk was sometime during this year, if this were a normal year, that they'd probably, one or two or all of them might get a shot to come up and, at least, throw an inning or 2 innings or whatever it might be. So, and I think that's still the plan as we go along here. These guys are going to be in part of our 60 people in spring training, and we want them working, and they're going to get their work in. And then, as we go along, they'll continue to work, maybe a taxi squad. We haven't come with the numbers yet for any of that. We have a lot of plans, and they go a lot of different ways, but, we definitely think about this organization hasn't drafted these guys and brought them up to this point to all of a sudden say, you're not doing anything, just go ahead and go home. No, they're going to be a part of it. And with a lot of other guys, and then we'll keep them busy. So when they get their shot and have an opportunity, we have an opportunity, we'll give them their shot. They deserve that. They're good pitchers.
And that was, you kind of alluded to my follow-up question was going to be, how much you and Al talked about the balance on that taxi squad roster between making sure young guys are getting in their work and also having enough of a reserve list to make sure you're covered if you have a rash of injuries, especially early on in the season?
Sure. And those are all, we've been over and all this and talked about exactly what the question you asked. We have a plan, and they're gonna get to keep working. We've got, enough staff members. We've got the AAA staff. We got all kinds of extra bodies coming in. We're going to have 2 waves at spring training. We're going to have probably, they're coming in waves, but we'll have one group be working out in the morning and one group working out in the afternoon. But they're going to get their work. And you know what? I think like every other fan, I'm a fan too. And, it's nothing like seeing a guy get a chance to pitch in the big leagues for the first time. And I think, somewhere during the summer here, once we get going in this thing under 60 games, it makes it a little tougher. But our goal is to, let those guys maybe have a chance if everything goes good and they're doing good. And you know what, that's part of the plan, to keep those guys pitching and maybe get them, up to the big leagues and do this. But there's no guarantees on anything. So we have a plan, and it is to take care of these guys because they are your foundation. And you know what, they're close. We got some guys that can pitch in the big leagues right now.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. With that, we'll wrap it up with Gardy. Gardy, thanks again for your time. Look forward to seeing you at Comerica Park soon. Media, thank you again for joining us. We will move everybody back to the waiting room, and we'll have Matt Boyd with us shortly. So once he's ready, we'll move everybody back into this room, and we'll start with him. So
Thanks, Gardy.
Hey, Ron, is that a Sandlot T-shirt?
Absolutely. Killing me.
Gardy definitely brought his sense of humor with him to that press conference, wearing a "You're Killing Me" small shirt. And he mentioned some free Tigers masks. So if he gets one, I'm going to want one too. Art, I think we should definitely get one if he's getting one.
I would love a free Tigers mask. As a matter of fact, I think before it's all said and done, before there's a vaccine, I think we're going to have a plethora of different kind of masks. I ordered some, as you know. I volunteer at the Detroit Institute of Arts. I have a couple of DIA masks that are still coming in the mail, but hey, if you've got to do it, you might as well have some fun with it too, right? And you can make your own little statement with a mask. So it was fun. I mean, Gardenhire, I thought the thing that I really thought coming out of his press conference was that Mize, Manning, and I think I just combined their name, Mize and Manning and Screwball, he still expects to see that they're going to pitch, that they're going to may still get an opportunity in this 60-game season, because in a 162-game season, they were going to probably let them come up and throw an inning or two. So that was interesting news. And I know Al Avila said, which we didn't air, said in his presser that, hey, that's going to be up to Ron Gardenhire. So there's still a plan that way, which is good. I think fans are a little bit eager to see. You read about these arms for a couple of years, so that was good. But I really think the gist that I had, if I had to sum up Ron Gardenhire's press conferences, we'll take it as it comes. There's a lot of uncertainty still. He just doesn't know. So, I think he was really, no pun intended, Gardenhire was guarded in what he was saying, because I think he knows deep down this is going to be a long process. We're going into the unknown right now. We're going to make the best of a bad situation. So, I mean, he's being a real realist about this, and I thought it was, I thought it was a bit refreshing. Certainly he wants baseball. We all want baseball. We all want sports. I want to be able to get in my car and drive and walk around a mall or something if I want, or go to a movie, whatever. We're all getting to that point. This is what we want to do. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. So whatever comes our way, we're going to have to adapt. And Ron Gardenhire seems to be the right guy in the position for the Tigers right now, because whatever comes his way, he's going to make a decision that is safety and healthy, health first, and then what benefits the Tigers. So I thought again, and I've talked to Ron over the years, especially when he was the Twins manager. I talked to him more when he was the Twins manager than since he's been the Tigers manager. But I've always appreciated him. I think he's an upfront and real honest guy, and I feel confident that he will make the best of this situation, and that the Tigers will be ready to play come July 24th.
And Art, you touched on it briefly. He was very adamant about the health and safety of the players and the staff and everybody that is involved in the Tigers organization, which obviously is great to see, because that's what everybody needs to do right now. He's going to make his decisions based on health and safety first, and really baseball second at this point. But one thing that you did touch on too were the prospects, the pitching prospects. And it would be really cool to see them. We all want to see them get their chance at the big leagues. But another thing that's been talked about in these press conferences is that the Tigers may be able to make a little run of their own in a shortened season. And that is something that they're considering and that they are looking at. So I think it will all depend on where they are in the standings, as if we're going to see some of these young guys come up and make their major league debuts.
Well, you're exactly right. Look, you have a healthy Miggy Cabrera, still one of the best hitters in baseball. Yeah. Then you put C.J. Cron and Jonathan Scope, and you bring those power hitters in. And, who knows? I mean, guys are playing for, look at how the Tigers drafted. If I'm Candelario, hey, it's now or never for me. So, so he's got to be able to, I would be motivated. Isaac Paredes, these are guys that, look, and they see what the Tigers have done, and, who they have coming up and how they've replenished the stock with positional players. So there's going to be some competition. In a 60-game season, anything can happen.
It can, Art. And I think I started a little bit of something here. I don't know exactly what it is that I started, but we're getting some comments on Facebook that everybody wants a Tigers mask. So Tigers, you guys might have to get on that for all the fans. We're going to have to get a mask thing going here. We can all have just some stripes or something, maybe even an English D. I don't know. We could make a variety of them.
Well, I think they should have the old English D, but the Tiger logo I like is the round one, says Detroit Tigers with the growling tiger in the middle. That's the kind of mask that I would want.
That is the best star. We'll have to see what we can do about that. But now Matt Boyd is live on the Zoom with the Detroit media. So let's toss over to that.
Follow up. And if you are not asking a question, please have your microphone on mute. And again, if you have a question, just put in the chat and we will we'll get to those as they looks like we'll start with Dan Dickerson from the Tigers Radio.
Hey, Matty, how are you?
Hey, Dan, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I just want to talk. We talked early on during this thing after the health protocols were released about some of the restrictive measures. How much has that evolved in the discussions with Major League Baseball from the Players Union side about, because you and I had talked, it just seems important that baseball is about a game of communication, you with your catcher in the, in between innings to talk about the next half inning, the ability to sit close to each other, to have those conversations during a game versus everybody 6 feet apart in the stands. Can you just kind of give us a feel for how maybe that has been tweaked, or is it still going to be very restrictive as the season gets underway?
I think that there's going to be a little bit of both, if you will. It's going to be, this year's going to look different any way that you shake it, right?
Right.
It's compared to years past, and I think you have to look at it as this is just a new normal, and that's perfectly okay. Who knows what normal is, what we make it, right? So if this is what becomes it, then this is what it becomes. But in that same kind of in that same breath, there were some things that were tweaked slightly. Most of them were based off of us wanting to do as much as we can to stay ready on the field. There's some things that might have been restrictive in terms of just, hey, we want to put the best product on the field. How can we, make some of these things a little more, stay healthy, stay within what's recommended, but also be able to do what we need to, whether it's in the batting cage or the bullpen or, in a hydrotherapy tub or any, what I mean, whatever it may be. So some of those things were just, I don't want to say loosened, because, the goal, we got to stay healthy. As you can tell, we're going to so many tests are going to happen over these next few days. And there's a high likelihood that there's a lot of guys that either have antibodies or have it. And then, we'll navigate that as we go. But in that, it's safety is the number one priority, but we also got to put the best product out there. So it's navigating those two things and doing it the right way.
And do you feel that team chemistry, always that whole bonding process that takes place in spring and over the course of a season, that you can still accomplish those things even as you try to remain, as you say, safe and follow the protocols?
Yeah. It's going to be different. It's going to be different not giving guys big hugs and high fives and stuff. And I'm sure that there's going to be just, emotion's going to take over. The second that we hit a walk-off home run, everyone's probably going to jump out and be like, oh yeah, wait, hold up. But, the thing is though, as long as we're going to be tested, very, very, very frequently. The guys are going to be taking care of themselves. Obviously stuff happens, but hopefully we'll have a pretty close knit bubble, at the field, and it's going to be different, not being able to high five and stuff. But we're baseball players. We'll get creative.
I'm sure you will. Thanks, Matty.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Next, we'll go to Chris Mycoskie of the Detroit News.
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hey, Chris.
Just to follow up on what Dan was asking you, what are you most concerned about relative to the virus and relative to your own routine, which I know your routine is sacred to you? Is there anything that you can't do now because of the protocols?
No. Maybe we might be limited in the sense of sorry about that, guys. We might be limited in the sense of there might not be 50 of us in the weight room at once. I might have to go do my weighted balls and stuff out in the service tunnel. But outside of that, you just find a way to get whatever you need to get done. And if that means you gotta, it's just, you just find a way. And there'll be an adjustment period. Luckily, we have 21 days or so in spring that we can use to just get adapted and to say, okay, this is how it's going to be, and it's going to be even probably a little less crazy than it in the season than it is in spring because we have so many players around. But we'll just find ways and say, okay, well, if we couldn't do it like the way we did it last year, then we'll find a way to do it now. And you just find a way to do what you need to do.
It looks like, just going over social media and your guys' Twitter and stuff, the players are unanimously excited about being back and flipping that switch. Did anybody from your team in your role as a union rep express concern about coming back? Did anybody say, I'm not sure I should risk this?
Yeah, there's some there. We had guys asking good questions, and I think me included. Technically I'm high risk. I am high risk. I've had asthma my whole life. I'm medicated for it, and there is a risk going into this. That being said, it just means you got to be cautious. You got to be smart. Luckily, we have health professionals all around. We're going to be monitored every day. So it's everybody wants to stay healthy. Nobody wants to get sick, right? And at the same time, no one's going to be wild out there. I believe that our team is going to take care of themselves, and they will be smart on and off the field. But we had guys that expressed just asking good questions, asking the right questions, and it was it's good that they are, but this is the world we live in now, right? And you have to be smart, but you also can't live in fear, right? And so you got to go out and just adapt best you can in the world that is our world today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Next, we'll go to Cody Stavenhagen from The Athletic.
Hey, Matt. Good to see you, man.
Hey, Cody.
I guess just given your role as a player rep, what was this whole negotiation process with the league like for you? And do you expect to be able to move on despite some of the animosities that came up over the past month or so?
Yeah, this was it was very eye-opening. I've heard, you hear about the guys, one of them being on there who talks about the work stoppages that they went through or collusion cases and whatnot. And, it's, you can hear so much, you can read so much about them, you can read books, you can try to understand it, but you don't understand negotiating until you're seeing the kind of the day in and day out things, or habits and whatnot. And it was good. It was eye-opening to me. Eye-opening to a lot of guys. I think the majority of our team. Our whole team was very much engaged, which is really, really unique and special. And I think that kind of goes across the league, though. At the same time, everybody was engaged because we just kind of were thrust into it. And that being said, what was the second part of your question?
I don't know. Just how do you think you personally and baseball as a whole might or might not be able to move on? The right.
I think it's a matter of perspective, Cody. If you look at it and you say, okay, well, we haven't had the bargaining. We went through bargaining in 16, but the current state of everything is much different than it is in 16. And when 2021 comes around, we kind of leading into that. And I think that this time is actually going to be beneficial for both sides. We were able to. It's not very often that you have a mini bargaining a year and a half before the big one, and I think that's just gonna allow us to work and hopefully bridge that gap even better going forward because we have this experience now, from the player reps to the executive committee and everybody else in between. I know a lot of people are talking. There's a lot of dialogue that's very negative surrounding it. I think that this is only going to make us better going forward. In terms of just being able to talk and understanding what the gaps we can bridge, and hopefully dialogue will continue for the next negotiations over the coming months, and we can continue to just bridge that gap and negotiate the right way. And so I think this was good going forward.
Okay. And moving forward, I mean, what do you think things will look like for you kind of off the field? I mean, do you think you're going to bring your wife and your kids up to Detroit, and just how are the health and safety protocols affect all that this year?
Well, we've been here. We came up here and we've been living here since spring training. This is home to us. You know, we have a home here now, and so we've been just hunkered down here and living out here. So it's that fine line, you know. I mean, I took my daughter to a park this morning. Now, you know, we got to tell her, like, hey, you know, we can't be too close to anybody, but we got to sanitize, and you know, she's got to do all the necessary things after she leaves. But that being, you know, and you know, I got to keep my distance, you know, from everything. But you know, it's not going to a park that's going to be overpopulated either, right? You got to find one that's only got a few kids, you know, at it. But like, you know, stuff like that, like you got to let them live as they can. But in the same breath, you know, we can't be, you know, careless and going crazy, you know. And the stuff that we go through is like disinfecting vegetables, and you're disinfecting your all your groceries when you come home, not just cleaning your vegetables anymore. You're cleaning, you know, bags of chips and everything when you get home from the store. Some of that stuff is just a normal. So, I mean, that's just going to be the new normal. So you got to go through that and, you know, be smart in that same sense. And, you know, but, you know, we can't just bring the family up and just lock ourselves in the house at the same time. Right. So it's being prayerful about it, and trying to have wisdom in it. And, you know, understanding that too, that I have an obligation to keep everyone at the field safe too, because I'm going to be around them as well.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate
it. Thanks, Cody. Next, we'll go to Trevor Thompson from Fox Sports Detroit.
Hey, Matt, good to see you, and glad all is well with the family. You're not that far removed from the stage of development that guys like Mize and Manning, Faedo, and Scooble are right now. If you put yourself back there at this stage of their career and their development, how might this year and the lack of the innings that they can pitch affect them, and how can they overcome that, and just where that might hurt them in the long run, and how to deal with that? If you can just relate.
Yeah, definitely can't make up the time that was lost in terms of game situation. You know, you need game situation to create game situation, you know, so I mean, to put yourselves in that mode. So that part's tough. But then again, how often have guys been awarded almost 3 months after spring training that they were allowed to go out there and see what they did in spring, see where they could be better, you know, where there could be some deficiencies, and then go implement it into this mini off season that we've had, and say, okay, I can go work on my curveball, or I can use this time to get even stronger. I mean, you know, when baseball comes around, you know, skill is priority. You want to get as strong as you can this season, but you know, you want to be ready for game day. So there's not a lot, you got to limit what you could do in the season, but we've had a few months to get even stronger. Guys have had a few months to like continue to work on their craft. I think time like that will also pay dividends for them. Yeah, you're not going to make up the game situation. That's going to be tough, building up innings. But who knows the gains that they could have made in these last few months if they chose to. And I know those guys, and knowing their character, I know they did. So I think that it's pretty special to know that, you know, there's a flip side of that coin. Yeah, there's no games, but at the same time, there's a lot of time that could be used to get better.
And just a follow up to that, those guys have some live arms. How could they help your team if they get the opportunity in a sprint like this?
I think they could be extremely beneficial. You know, it's unique that the sense that some of the situations they might come into might be without fans in the crowd or limited capacity. That should never be an issue, but it became an issue for me. You know, it took me a while to understand that doesn't dictate my game. And, you know, there's little situations, little nuances that, you know, who knows, maybe it makes it an easier transition. Maybe it makes it harder. I don't really know, but, I know that their talent will be able to help us if their name's called upon. And, this is a sprint, and it's exciting that it is a sprint. You know, our knock on our team has been that we're young, and, you know, that they can't handle 162 games, you know, and that's, you know, that comes with experience. Well, you know, the season's flipped now, and it's a sprint, and we do have talent. We have a lot of talent. We brought in talent. So it's exciting to say, man, they're starting to think, well, who knows what can come from this. But I mean, it's I know we all have one thing on our mind, and that's to dominate like we know how we can, one game at a time, and to go crazy on that kind of thought path.
Thanks, Maddie. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor. Next, we'll go to Jeff Seidel from the Free Press.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, you mentioned that you were in Detroit. How were you able to throw? Were you at a high school field? Were you at some facility, or how were you able to continue training?
Yeah, well, the last month I've been at the stadium, which has been awesome. The few months prior to that, I was training with Eric Haas, and Eric and I were training at a few local area facilities that we were, given the keys to, and we were able to go in there with nobody else in there. And luckily, no one was using them, so they were, they were, I mean, sanitary, and we just kind of took our own measures to clean and disinfect things. And I have my Rapsodo up here and the technology I have, and we were getting after it. John Schreiber joined us. Luckily, we have our bullpen catchers, Tim Reams and Jeremy Carroll, up here too. So we had a little knit group that we go between a few different facilities, and we also had we go to a park. One park I got kicked off of after about a handful of days, and then started going to a different park. And yeah, it was it's been good stuff, and really just enjoyed being back here. And it's weird being back here without having the obligation of going into the field. It's been fun just being with the family here and hanging out in our yard and barbecuing and throwing and getting all I need to get done, and then being able to help out my wife as best I can.
And one quick follow-up: how has Kingdom Home been? Have you guys regarding the virus?
Yeah, regarding the virus, it's luckily everyone has been safe. It hasn't affected any children in our home, any house parents, any helpers. None of that has been affected, so that's been great. And my wife has been just steadfast, and the other Kingdom Home employees have just been steadfast in pushing forward, and really making sure that the construction on the new homes doesn't get delayed, and that we can start that in safe parameters. So luckily we have some awesome people on the ground that want to get the job done in the right way over there, and it's been it hasn't been easy for her, and in terms of just the amount of work that has to be done in terms of doing it the right way in the safe way, but it's been good. And yeah, it's luckily I think everything isn't too far off track right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Next, we'll go to Daniela Bruce.
Matt, I don't know if you were listening to Gardy before this, but he said we should ask you because you might be able to pitch 9 innings right now. So with that, I'm just going to ask you, how are you feeling heading into next week's spring training?
I'm feeling good. I've been doing a simulated game a week, being as close to as we can to a 5-day schedule, with taking a day off in the weekend, because there's no reason to go crazy on that kind of 5-day schedule right now. Allow yourself a little extra breaks. But I've been building my pitch count up, and it's something I've actually talked with Jack a lot about in spring. Sometimes you feel like you just want to keep going deeper in your outings in the spring, and sometimes you want to let the pitch count go even higher, because those early on ones you almost feel a little held back. So going back a few weeks, we saw how this would kind of play out, and we were just slowly stretching it out every week, just getting another up and down in, doing it really slow, but doing it really good. And we're up to 5 innings, and it'll probably, my first start in spring will probably be somewhere between 4 and 5 innings, and then round 6 and then 7, I'll probably have about 3 of them, and then hopefully we'll be ready for that first week of the season, not have any restrictions on it. So I think it's our obligation, as players, we got to be ready as best we can, because we're only going to have, what is it, like 12 starts this year? Yeah, probably. So, got to go crazy in those 12 that you have. Leave it all out there. Not that you leave, but you don't want it to be restricted by anything early in the year. So, got to do it the right way. You want to avoid injury at the same time. So, but it's been good.
One more quick question for you. You mentioned the talent that this team has. Michael Fullmer has been cleared for full baseball practice here. What does he bring for your team, especially in this shortened season?
Man, anytime you get a guy like Michael Fullmer back, it's going to be healthy. He's going to be healthy, and he's going to be helpful in any way that he can. I mean, is just an immense talent, man. With his heater, man, that sinker, that slider changeup combo that he has. Everyone saw that what he can do right out of the chutes there in 2016, and Mike's healthy now, and it's exciting to see. Whatever kind of role that it'll all of us kind of fall into. It's awesome to have an arm like Michael back, and I know that it's going to be it's going to be exciting to know that that's just another cog in our staff. That, man, it's another weapon that we're going to have, and it's couple that with who knows who's in AAA that could make a difference. I mean, it's we have pitching. We're going to be good, and I'm excited about it. We're all excited about it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Daniela. Next, we'll go to Anthony Fennick from the Free Press.
Hey, Matt. Hope everything's going well with you. You've talked in the past, I mean, as recently as this winter, about winning a World Series here, and the struggles that this team has gone through the last couple of years, but you also have seen the kids and where they're at, and like in terms of coming up. And I know everybody wants to play 162 games, but a short season, 60 games, and seeing the timeline, knowing where you're at as an organization, how exciting is it right now to know that you guys could be right on the cusp of something pretty special here?
I mean, I'll say it again. We've always been on the cusp of it, right? And I think it's with more experience comes, pushes us even closer to that. So I'm excited. We're all excited. We're, we know what we're capable of individually and then collectively. Have we done that? Have we even reached close to our potential? Absolutely not. But I think the margin for it all is slim. It's a lot closer than people perceive, and we all know that in the clubhouse. So I don't know what's going to happen over 60 games. Good news is nobody else does either. So we're excited about that, and we're excited to go forward and put our best foot forward and go out there and compete every single game. And compete within our division and compete against some other foes that we probably haven't faced in a few years. That's going to be fun. And, we're excited for it, and whatever kind of shape it may take, we're excited for it. And, it's going to be fun.
And from early on, that first weekend when kind of in spring training, when baseball stopped there, you guys all stayed in Lakeland over the weekend.
Yeah.
The culture that guys like you and Daniel and Jordan and Fullmer and these guys want to establish, how have you guys been able to come together during this time? And do you feel like something like this, even though for a majority of it you guys have been apart, can pull a 30-man team, 35, 36 guys together for a good way?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we've all stayed in contact, and that's kind of been the cool thing. And whether it's through a group text or the Zoom calls that we had, like, we've all stayed in contact. And, it's amazing the kind of banter we have just over text messages back and forth, and the hard time guys give each other. But culture, you can't force a culture. It's created, it's developed, for good or bad. And I think that culture that that winning culture is the roots are being laid, and they were laid last year in the struggles that we had, because it wasn't fun. We understood how far we were in a lot of ways, and we understood how close we were in a lot of ways. And because of that, that started to be created. And, I think it took huge steps this spring, with the guys that were brought in and with the guys that were coming up. And, competition breeds success. It's awesome to have a whole slew of people in there that are pushing you day in and day out, whether it's in the weight room or on the field. And that continued to grow over this time that we were apart. So it's exciting to know, man, I can't wait to see what shape that takes form when we all get together at Comerica.
Thanks. See you soon.
Yeah. See you, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony. Next, we'll go to Jason Beck from MLB.com.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Hey, Jason.
Hey, I had a question about, the spring training change how many guys were down in Florida or in Lakeland anticipating things getting underway down there? And how much did the change in Detroit force a last minute switch for guys?
There are a lot of guys down there. I think they had at times between like they were running groups in and out, you know, doing it the right way, distancing and all. But I think they had upwards of like maybe 20 people at times, not all at once, but you know, in and out and distancing the right way. And but don't quote me on that. I mean, I wasn't down there. I don't know for sure. But I know there were a lot of guys that just stayed down there thinking that it probably would be down there. I mean, me included, there were some of us that we didn't know. I mean, nothing was for sure. We knew that it ideally would be in Florida just because you have more space there, right? Space is huge right now in the world that we live in. So, you know, it's kind of space, you know, it's you need that. So, but, you know, we're in Detroit and I'm not complaining. I get to stay at my house here. I get to stay with my family. These are the best months in Detroit. You know, I love this weather. You know, we got these beautiful long days. I sat outside till 9:15 last night, you know, and there was still sunlight. So, I mean, it's, I think no one's complaining about being up here. We all love it and we're excited. You know, we may not have multiple fields to, you know, walk in between, but in the same breath, you know, there's lots of ways to get work done up here. You know, there's lots of fields within the city close to the ballpark. So I know that are the minds that are in charge, which I'm glad I'm not one of those minds, but the minds that are in charge of scheduling and everything, I know that they'll develop a streamlined plan that will be fun to get us all out there. And then we can start inter-squatting in the stadium, which, you know, I think always a lot of good comes from that when you get to go head to head with your teammates, and a lot of good a lot of good competition is bred there. So I'm excited for that as well.
The other question I had was with the safety protocols and the environment of an empty stadium, playing in games in that environment. It seems like a lot of what you guys are going through is similar, if not the exact same as what guys in overseas leagues have been doing. You've played with Ryan Carpenter, who's in Taiwan. You've played with Chad Bell, who's in Korea, Dixon Machado there, even Drew Verhagen in Japan. Have you talked with those guys about what it was like going through that process?
Yeah.
Or any sort of thing you've been able to learn, even just by watching some of those games? I don't know if you've done that.
Yeah, no, been talking to those guys, reached out to Dixon a little bit, reached out to Drew a little bit. Just hearing their experiences was good stuff. It was all different, you know. They talked how different it was to walk into a stadium without any fans. How different it was to hear music echo through the stadium instead of just kind of settle in, you know, in situations like that. But I guess it's situations like that we're about to experience without fans that can, you know, kind of be a, you know, crucible, if you will, that will really refine you and show that, hey, what are you made of in this? Like, what is your driving force? What drives you in these situations? So I'm excited that, you know, the game is the game, right? Whether it's inherent in me, it's inherent in other players, you know, wherever they are, regardless of the location, regardless of who's in the stands. So I'm excited for the challenge, or really, it's not even a challenge. I'm excited for the opportunity that presents itself, because it's just going to be cut down to its rawest form. Here it is. Here's baseball. Let's go play the game.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. We got time for a couple more questions. We'll go first to Dan Dickerson, and then we'll wrap with Jason Lewis. So, Dan, go ahead.
Matt, can you give us a feel for, I mean, you've been in touch, as you said, with all the other guys in the rotation. Have they all been kind of doing the same thing you've been doing in terms of getting prepared by throwing simulated games? Because you've talked about in a short season, attitude and your preparation could help you get that competitive edge in the early going of a season over some other teams that maybe haven't done the same kind of preparation.
Completely. Yeah, I know everyone has been working in the ways that they can, they're able to. You know, I've been up here going, I think Haas yesterday faced me, I think 18 times. Trying to get a guy out 18 times in a game is really, really unique. I'm glad I don't have to, hopefully we'll never have to experience that in my career. But I mean, seriously, it's going, and that's presented its own challenge. And I've been grateful for that. You know, in the same, you know, I know that Norris was doing the same thing down in Lakeland. Zim's been doing it up in Wisconsin. Turnbull, I think Turnbull was in Nashville, and then in Lakeland, he was doing the same thing with Michael and him down there. So, guys are hungry. Guys are have been understanding that we have an opportunity to put our best foot forward right from the start, right from the get go, and we plan to, and so it's exciting, and knowing that we are all doing that. None of that guarantees success, and that's also known and accepted, and because of that, it's going, okay, man, it's just time to go compete. We know what we expect of ourselves. Hopefully there's no restrictions on us. Let's just go do this thing.
What was the final tally on those 18 times you faced Eric Haas?
Oh man, well, two starts ago, he I think in his 12th at bat, he clicked me, put one over the bullpen. That was the only one he got out on me, though. I mean, I wasn't able to strike him out a lot. It's good facing a righty who crushes lefties. So he was really. It's like, okay, it was kind of cool to get to attack a guy and attack him in different ways. It's like I'm establishing my heater first time through, and then it's like, wow, I can actually ride my heater a little longer, and it's like, okay, well, change-ups here don't work, but change-ups here work. And that's like, using 4 pitches against the guy, it presented a whole new challenge that was really kind of fun to navigate. So the final tally, I don't know. I think he had a 2 knocks off me yesterday. I hung a changeup and he hit it down the line for what probably would have been a double. And then I think, I don't think I walked him. That was a good thing. I don't think I walked him in a few weeks. So yeah.
Never miss an opportunity to learn, right?
Always learning.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. And our last question is from Jason Lewis, ABC 12.
Hey, Matt, thanks for taking the time. As you mentioned before, nothing beats game experience. So for those taxi squad guys that are going to be going back and forth, when it comes to pitching wise, how hard is it going to be from going from just simulated games and, bullpen sessions, inter squad scrimmage to coming up and then maybe the next day actually starting in a real live game?
I think the only thing that might change is that there's a TV camera in the park, right? A game's a game, whether whoever you're playing against. And that's kind of, I think, the challenge that guys will be, presented with is understanding what drives me. Is it the park? Is it the uniform? Or is my game my game? Is my game the same here or in Toledo or at Wayne State University or on the moon? Did my game change despite those things? No, it shouldn't, right? Now, like, it's going to be different, probably they're going to face the same team over and over again down there or the variation of the same team. That will be a challenge in itself, but with that challenge also comes new ways that you can grow. So perspective is key in all this, and I think that it's going to be really, really beneficial for those guys to have an environment that will be kind of controlled in the same breath, and then but also competitive, and then that transition should be pretty seamless. Hopefully it's just a quick drive right up 75 when the time comes, whenever that may be.
Thanks, Matt. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, likewise, Jason. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody, again for joining us. Matt, thank you for your time today, and we look forward to seeing everybody at Comerica Park soon, hopefully. All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, guys.
There you have it, everybody. You heard from Tigers pitcher Matt Boyd. Art, what did you think overall of what Matt Boyd had to say? I thought he seemed really confident and really ready to go, frankly.
Well, I'll tell you, my first impression is this. I know that his nickname is Matty, I guess, which is kind of weak, to be honest with you. But I think he was Professor Boyd. Pardon me?
You need to give him a new nickname then. So you start thinking now.
Well, I was going to tell you, I think I'm going to call him Professor Boyd. I know Igor Larionov is the professor, but that's hockey. So, or Prof Boyd. I'll tell you how impressed I was. I think he could get into the University of Michigan. That's how impressive he was. And I know he'd 4.0. I know he'd 4.0 at Michigan State. But with that said, all kidding aside, what I really liked about him is that he said, we have pitching. And in a 60-game season, pitching is going to be key. And I think that the pitchers will be ahead of the hitters. I really do. And so I think that he's pretty confident, and he's been in contact with these guys. And another good thing is, and we know from talking to Alex Faedo and some of the other pitchers, guys that we've talked to here on the Word on Woodward, that they all get along, they all like each other, and they're always in contact with one another. Maybe that's just the part of their generation, is that, oh, I haven't Zoom called, my buddies today, I got to do that or whatever. I mean, everybody is engaged in social media, which is really, really a good thing. So I think that the Tigers are in good shape, because unlike when we talk to guys about hockey starting up, they think it's going to be a score fest, that that you're going to see really high scoring games, and the most offensive teams are probably going to end up competing for the Stanley Cup. I personally think it's going to be the opposite in baseball. That means the Tigers team, which is rich in pitching, by their own admission, they're not hiding it. Now, granted, it's young, but if they can start coming together, and I think their starting five is pretty good, you throw Michael Fullmer into the mix, and then they straighten out the bullpen, which isn't as bad as I think, the fatalistic Tiger fan like myself thinks. And then you got, like I said earlier, Miguel Cabrera. I mean, the Tigers could actually make some noise in an odd season where things are all up in the air. You can see a team come from nowhere and actually leave an impression and make a mark. And I think what Professor Boyd just said is absolutely correct. And I thought he was really well thought out. I mean, you cannot force a culture. I wrote down all kinds of quotes by him. You cannot force a culture. But what he's talking about, and what is really, really got me all jacked up, is that the Tigers understand that. These players get it, and they know that they are responsible for the culture that comes out of this season. They're geared towards winning. He thinks they're on the cusp. I mean, that is absolutely tremendous stuff, and I believe him. If you just watch Matt Boyd in this press conference, how you can't be psyched up, or at least encouraged, because the players were engaged during this whole process. They asked questions. They're eager to get going. They believe they're on the cusp. They have pitching, which is going to be very important in a 60-game season. I can't wait for baseball to start. At this point, July 24th can't come soon enough.
Matt Boyd has Art all amped up, and I'm sure he has our friend Dan Dickerson amped up too. We're going to welcome Dan in to talk about these three press conferences that we had today. Dan was present at Al Avila, Ron Gardenhire, and Matt Boyd's conferences. Dan, what did you think overall? Just give us some of your biggest takeaways from all three of these press conferences.
I'll start with Matt Boyd, because Art is, I think, rightfully fired up about it. I think the thing that, from Matt, you really get the sense of attitude is going to play a big part in this, right? And his attitude is, okay, we've been shut down for 3 months, but hopefully you took something away from spring training, what you had to work on, and you went and worked on that the last 3 months. And given his leadership abilities, I'm sure that's exactly what most of them did. I think with his leadership, those guys have all been working up toward, by the end of spring training, they're going to be able to pitch, as he said, 6-7 innings. You've only got 12 starts. Why start out where you can only go 4 or 5 innings? So I think Matt Boyd's been a huge part of what these guys have been doing. So to me, he's got the perspective of, okay, this is different, but how we approach it matters. And he's going to have these guys on the pitching side of the equation, I think, very much in the right frame of mind to hit the ground running and get off to a good start. And maybe that gives you that competitive edge. Al Avila was asked time and time again about Mize Manning and Skubal. And I think, he danced around it a little bit, but I think, his point is we don't want to jeopardize our long-term plan. But I think that leaves room for those guys all making appearances. I think Gardy alluded to that. These guys were all in camp when spring training. They were there for a reason. They wanted to see Skubal on that last Monday before we shut down on a Thursday, I think it was, face the Houston Astros on the road. There's a reason for that. They think he is that close to the major leagues. I think we're going to see all three. I don't think Al Avila wants to, give everybody his plan right now, but it's not going to be an issue about starting the clock. It's going to be an issue of continued development If they all make appearances this year, you've still got 6 years of control starting next year. And you don't generally worry about the clock with pitchers. So those were all the things that came out of it. Like, Art, I've got all these notes about, it's fun though. It's fun to talk about baseball. Fans should know there are a lot of decisions that will have to be made. It will not be as easy to make them, at Comerica Park in waves of workouts, mornings and afternoons, as it would be with exhibition games in Florida. But that's what they've got, and that's what they're going to do.
If I could just I'm sorry, Danny. I've got to piggyback out. Again, whom I call now Professor Boyd because he's so impressive. What a speaker! I would say this is that when he talked about Mize, Manning, Struble, and Faedo, he said, you can't make up for lost time, but it was what they did with that lost time. And he said, work on their craft. And I think that Matt. I think that Professor Boyd was on the phone with these guys saying, you better be working on your craft. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that, like Alex Faedo, if he wants to really make sure that his change up is his out pitch, he's working on it. Manning and Struble and Mize, throwing the fastball or developing another pitch. So I think these guys, when the Tigers convene at Comerica Park and they're all going to be there, part of the 60-man roster, I think they have worked on their craft. I think they're going to surprise people, and I think the Tigers are going to have some good, tough decisions to make. I really, really do. And I think it's because those 4 young men, and I think a lot of the young Tiger prospects and players have really taken this to heart, see this opportunity. Sure, they're heartbroken that they can't actually play and compete in actual games, but they know sometimes it's what you do off the field that makes you a better player on the field. And I think that these young arms, basically led by what Matt Boyd was probably telling them, I think that they're, and Gardenhire did allude to it. Al, as a general manager, will be a little more, guarded in it. I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for the Tigers. It really is. If COVID-19 calms down, we're able to get everything going and they start playing, I think this is going to be a fun season.
I do too.
It will be, Dan. And another thing that he touched on, and it was Al Avila that confirmed that Michael Fullmer is actually cleared for full baseball activity. That's huge news for the Tigers and, of course, the pitching staff. What is he going to bring, especially when you have this short season? What do you see Michael Fullmer adding to the rotation?
I think Gardy made the point, and this is why you love talking to Ron Gardenhire. It's great that his arm is feeling good, but he has to show us that he can handle his position. That's always a big thing with him. And I'm sure Michael Fullmer knows that because he had the knee issue. He wants to show that knee is 100%. So I think Michael Fullmer can add a lot. Ideally, guy coming back from Tommy John, he makes X number of starts in the minor leagues, and then if he looks good, you bring him up. They won't have that luxury, but I think they will be able to, assuming he feels his position and he can move the way he wants to with that knee, and it sounds like it's healthy, and I'll bet he's just fine. Assuming that, how he pitches in these inter-squad games could absolutely affect the Tigers in terms of how they decide. Does he start on the taxi squad and get some innings at Toledo in inter-squad games? I'll bet if he looks good and the arm is good and there's not really a spot in the rotation maybe right now because you do have Boyd, Norris, Turnbull, Nova, Zimmerman, I bet that Michael Fullmer plays a big role because I'm almost positive you're going to see some piggyback start situations to get those young guys innings at some point. And I think Michael Fullmer could be an ideal candidate to maybe be in a piggyback situation coming back from Tommy John. And then by the end of the 60 games, wouldn't be surprised at all to see all the restrictions taken off and let him go 4, 5, 6 innings, whatever he shows he can handle. I think he can play a fairly major role. I don't think there's any question.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to hear from some of the Tigers staff and, of course, Matt Boyd. So we're all excited for baseball's return, and we will have more on that on the Word on Woodward tomorrow at noon. Thank you guys all for watching the special edition today, and we will see you tomorrow.